You are listening to the Hiking Radio Network, where we talk the walk with shows by hikers, about hikers, for everybody.
Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. Join Steve and his guests every week as he staggers from Georgia to Maine.
Hi guys, and thanks for coming back again to Mighty Blue on the Appalachian Trail, the ultimate midlife crisis. It is now July. I started in February. But I can say for the very first time that if I finish, I'll be finishing next month. That feels so good. We've done so many miles, and even though we've got plenty to go, mainly tough ones, we definitely now have our eye on the prize. It's been 4 days since we were last together, and so with no need to introduce our sponsor, because we don't currently have one, let's hear what happened on day number 123. Day 123, US Route 7, mile 1491.6, to Brassy Brook Shelter, mile 1506, a 14.4 mile day. We started out from Mary's back at Route 7. We just went 2 or 3 miles kind of flat through fields and on roads to Falls Village. And Falls Village is where, oh, by the way, I meant to tell you this, where we spent the previous evening watching Mary and her friends play guitar and singing. And as I wrongly said last time, it was the third Thursday of the month. It was, in fact, the fourth Thursday of the month. So I didn't do terribly well with that. But anyway, so we're back into Falls Village. And as we came back into the village itself, we then crossed the Housatonic on an iron bridge and started climbing. But then we heard the great falls before we saw them. Suddenly they appeared, and they really are a special sight. These falls, they must fall about, 80, 100 feet, something like that. And there was a guy fly fishing on the bottom, and we were just standing around right by the edge of the water with a couple of other people. It was quite a sight. I really enjoyed it. Carried on climbing up. There was a really rocky summit at Mount Prospect, which was very, very nice indeed. And then we went down and walked along a path in a large open field with great views of mountains in the distance. I didn't realise, but looking at gut hooks later, they turned out to be Bear Mountain, Race Mountain and Everett Mountains, both of which would welcome me the following day. And let me tell you, they were tough. I actually took the opportunity to FaceTime my brother, Mike, and show him the scenery. I love doing that, being able to share with friends and family, what it's like out here and how beautiful it can be, and just kind of have them along with me. From Prospect, there had been a general descent for about 4 miles and then a flat, and we came out at Undermountain Road, which was the road into Salisbury, and I had a plan. I've been following the World Cup soccer, female World Cup soccer, and the women's US soccer team were playing the French. So I'd looked up on Yelp for a sports bar and found one. I'm not a big fan of female soccer, but I like the idea of a World Cup anyway. And I thought it would be a competitive match. Apparently they're the 2 best teams. And I also knew that the winner will be playing England in the next round. So that was going to be a great matchup. So we found in Yelp this place called the Jack Rabbit in Lakeville, which was just beyond Salisbury. And so we thought we'd try get an Uber. Absolute failure. Uber's app is brilliant when there are actually cars available. There were no cars available. So I just lay exhausted on the grass while Trigger stuck out his thumb. It was very nice because a guy stopped in his truck very, very quickly. And soon we were in his truck, and he was kind of chatting to us about the hiking and the trail. He'd done a bit of hiking himself and so on. He took us straight to the restaurant. We watched the game and devoured food and had a couple of beers. And you know what? This isn't a bad idea anyway. And I kind of wish we'd done this before a bit, to get off the trail on a really hot day sometime. And it was, by now it was about, I don't know, I think the game started at 3. So I think it was about 2:30 when we got to the road. We never got back on the trail till 5:30. So we missed a lot of the heat of the day. That was a really good thing to do because, we were getting really hot, and to get this break, get into air conditioning and so on, have a couple of beers and so on, a bit of food, it was great. And we were chatting to one of the patrons there, and he said, when the game's over, I'll run you back to the trail, which was perfect for us. So I got into the back of his pickup truck by myself with the bags while Trigger sat in the cab, and he ran us back up there, which was nice. And we had a pretty big climb, and a total of about 4 miles to Brassy Brook Shelter. We knew we'd had this climb, but I think, having the break of 2 or 3 hours, having the food, having the beers, it just relaxes you so beautifully. And we tore up it, and we got there with no problem at all. And by the time we got there, there was a young guy and 2 women, and they were already camping there. So we just set up our tents, didn't need any more food. We'd already filled our boots on that, and went to bed. And it'd been a good day. I think it was a good thing for us to learn that it's quite important to give yourself that rest in the middle of the day. And we actually use that again sometime later in the week as well. But that's the end of day number 1, 2, 3. Day 124, Brassy Brook Shelter, mile 1506 to US Route 7, mile 1522.8, a 16.8 mile day. We knew there were 3 sharp climbs to begin the day, and I don't think I've been so unprepared for a climb as I was on this particular day. I don't know what it was. I had a bit of lethargy about me again, I'm afraid. And well, I'm not saying I didn't enjoy it, because I did enjoy it. It was a great day's hiking, really enjoyable. But I don't think I was quite prepared mentally for these climbs, and they really hit me hard. I'd only had a Pop-Tart for breakfast of champions, they say. They're clearly lying, by the way. Coffee and this Pop-Tart, and I just don't think it was enough for me to start my day. And Bear Mountain was straight away, and it wasn't too bad, but it was quite a substantial up, and then we started going down again after it was one of those mountains, Bear Mountain, where you thought you got to the top and you hadn't quite got there, and you kept going up and up and up. And eventually I made my way there. But man, I was trudging by then. I really was. But then Mount Race, and that was exhilarating. I found the climb up again very, very tough. But once you get up there, you're walking on these rocks, looking at magnificent views out to the side, completely open views. Literally, you are feet away from 1,000-foot fall, and not that it was dangerous, because you stay obviously well away from the edge, but it was just a beautiful and an exhilarating hike along the top. But I was really getting tired now. But I was nervous more about Everett than the other one. I always remember Mount Everett being really, really difficult to come down. I was entirely wrong. It was the easiest one to come down of all. But what I must have remembered, which I thought was Everett, was Jug End. The climb down from Jug End was super steep. And it was another one of those times where I thought, these are just on the edge of being too darn dangerous. We didn't have any rain. We were always expecting rain, I suppose. But we didn't have any rain at all. So it should have been okay. But I found it really, really difficult. I certainly did. And we still had another 4 miles to go to Route 7, but I was absolutely tired out by now. And I was running out of water. In fact, I'd run out of water. And we came around the corner, and there was a woman getting out of a car, just bringing a bunch of water, 5 or 6 big bottles of water. There's plastic bottles, I suppose. And she was pouring it into a container, which she put a big block of ice in as well. Oh my gosh. Some people just don't realise how fantastic water can taste when you really need it. My throat was parched, and I really desperately needed something. And this woman turned up with ice cold water. That is real trail magic. And talking of trail magic, a bit further on, we met a man called Mike, a listener, and he said he always listens to the show, as does some of his family. So that was lovely for me. Took a photo, and he said there, and almost as a reward, he said to us, "There's trail magic ahead." Well, of course, that made us really want to move. It said there's people at the road cooking food. Now, we didn't want them to go away, so we started speeding up a bit. And they'd set up signs about a mile from where the trail magic was, and then half a mile from where it was. Said, you're almost there. And we got to the road. Actually, you don't get to the road. You get out, and there's a grass bit which then leads you onto the road. And a guy called Boston Pop, who hiked last year, he set up a 10-foot by 10-foot canopy. He immediately said to it, are you through hikers? Yep, we're through hikers. And there were a bunch of people sitting around. I think they were youngsters and from camp, and obviously the people leading them were just looking after them as well. But these kids were talking to us about through hiking. It was lovely. Really, really enjoyed it. They put a couple of hot dogs in their hand, a beer. Who doesn't like that? And water and cupcakes. And he'd even set up a little shopping resupply in the back of his car for anything you wanted for free. Man, that was such a lovely thing for him to do. And I really appreciated it, Boston Pop. We'd already decided to stop at Route 7, and I'd already booked us, unfortunately, a room I had to share with Trigger, because I can't stand his snoring. He can't stand mine either. But this house where I stayed last time, it was owned by a lady called Jessica Treat, and it was very reasonably priced, very clean, very nice place. So I booked it, even though I didn't really want to share with Trig. We just don't want to share with each other. And I went there last time, and Jess wasn't there. I didn't meet her this first time. And I remember staying there. Was another old guy called Slowpoke, who was almost glacial in his hiking speed. And Jessica's friend Heath was there, and I really took to her, and we got on very, very well. And I thoroughly enjoyed spending the evening both with her and this time speaking with Jessica on breakfast the following morning. But when we got there, Trigger is all about going to a brewery, and I'm certainly not far behind on that, and I certainly want to go. So there was another guy there called JW, and we latched onto him and see if he wanted to come. We found ourselves an Uber driver. Jess said, you won't get an Uber out here. Well, one came out there. Unfortunately, it didn't come to take us back, so we had to call Jess to come and take us back once we'd been to the brewery. And something I've never seen before. As you may know, that marijuana is now legal in Massachusetts. There was a line 60 deep waiting to get into this medical dispensary. Apparently it's like it all day long. So there's a lot of people getting high in Barrington, which always just made me laugh. So there we are. That was the end of day number 124. An exhausting day, but fun day. And, it's another 16.8 miles in the books. Day 125, US Route 7, mile 1522.8 to South Mount Wilcox Shelters, mile 1534.5, just an 11.7 mile day. I don't know whether you remember, I mentioned before when you heard me read my book out, I met a guy called Baseman. And Baseman was a really nice fellow I bumped into several times on the AT. He was a section hiker, and we just bumped into each other 2 or 3 times in 2014, totally out of the blue. And then I've also bumped into him a couple of times this year already. And so he said he'd meet us at Lee in Massachusetts. So Trigger and I just had 2 days to get to US Route 20, which is only 30 miles ahead of us. So we were going to average about a 15-mile day each day. There was no great hurry to get anywhere, frankly. We knew whatever we did, if we did a 10-mile day, it'd be a 19-mile day the next day. If we did a 5-mile day, it'd be a 20, whatever it was, mile day the day later. The forecast for that day, which was a Sunday, which was when I'm recording this, was yesterday. It was for rain mid-morning. So Trigger and I decided, having seen the maps, which always appear to be wrong on the Weather Channel, but we saw the maps, the rain was definitely heading for us mid-morning. So we decided to get to the first shelter, the Tom Leonard Shelter, and then see where we were with the rain. Trigger headed off, as he has been recently, and I was hiking alone for some of the first 7 miles. But then after about 3 or 4 miles, I guess, I ran into a mother and daughter duo, flip-flopping and clearly having a very good time. They were Madre and Enough, and more about them later, actually. I decided to hike along with them because I was feeling a bit lonely, actually, this particular morning. Trigger had gone and there was no one to talk to, so I thought I'd hike along with them and just chat with them. And we took our time really getting to the shelter. And when I came to the entrance of the little blue path that leads, blue blaze path that leads down to the shelter, heard Trigger call out, "Marty Blue." I think he was a bit worried for me. He didn't know where I was. I think he'd been there about 20 minutes already. And so he was obviously a bit concerned. He didn't know where I'd been. But because the ladies were hiking slower than me, I was happy just to wander along behind them, just talking to them. And so we got into the shelter. Now, as I said to you about taking a break mid-afternoon, the previous day or a couple of days ago, it seemed... It was a nice thing. I enjoyed it. And so staying in this shelter, I thought to myself, well, I'm going to make myself some coffee. So I started boiling water and had a coffee and that and just kept checking the weather. It looked like we were about to get deluged for about 3 hours. So we just sat about, ate and chatted. And of course, it didn't rain at all. And suddenly the sun came out. Then the sky was blue. But according to the maps, the rain was all around us, but it just wasn't getting to us. Amazing, really. And while we were waiting, I decided to interview the mother and daughter combo. So here are Madre and Enough. Okay, we're here in the Tom Leonard Shelter with Tamara and Mariah, mother and daughter, and apparently they get called sisters from time to time.
Oh, Lord.
So tell us, what's your trail names, first of all, Tamara?
Madre.
Madre, the mother, yep.
Mm-hmm. I'm Enough.
Enough. And why are you Enough?
That's a good question. I wanted it to be like a personal challenge for me, I guess. So every time I introduce myself to someone, I have to say, "Hi, I'm Enough."
That's perfect. But you're the one who really wanted to do this, aren't you, in the first place? Tell us why.
I went to college in Virginia in the Shenandoah Valley, and that was my first real taste of the trail.
Right. And
got in my blood then, but put the dream on hold for 30 years.
So marriage and 4 kids later.
Yeah.
So if you waited for your daughter to grow up so you could
That's right.
take it on this trip. And you're doing a flip-flop. And why is that?
We were going to be southbounders, and we wanted to start June 1st, but Katahdin was still closed. It didn't open until June 15th. So we just started in Pennsylvania, which is where we live.
Just those 2 weeks that made a difference to you. You were dead set.
Yeah, we didn't want to wait longer. We were just afraid that it would be cold then when we were finishing.
Right.
So
you started in Pennsylvania, in Port Clinton or Hamburg?
Hamburg,
right.
Yeah.
Probably the toughest place to start.
Yeah.
Were you aware of how tough it was going to be?
No. And that's probably good that we just dove in.
You absolutely knocked out probably the worst place. I hated it from there. It was so difficult, I found.
Well, and we knew there were going to be a lot of rocks, but we didn't know where in Pennsylvania the rocks were, and we didn't realize that we were getting on right at the rocks.
Right at them. Did you find them sharp? It's almost as if somebody sharpened them, because when you get out of Pennsylvania, they're much rounder. Have you noticed in New Jersey? They're much easier.
We just found that we were just saying the other day how our feet don't ache as much as they did the first couple weeks, and we just thought that was normal. But then we were like, "Oh, it's just Pennsylvania. They get better after that."
And have you had any injuries so far?
Mom twisted her ankle on the first day, but other than that,
and you still. I'm looking under the table now to look at the. Is it the right ankle?
Yeah.
I must admit, it didn't look swollen to me. So what did you do for that? You said you discovered some
KT tape.
Yeah.
Put that on, just gave it a little support, and walked gingerly as I could over the rocks in Pennsylvania. Well,
we've just been hiking together for the last couple of hours. Mm-hmm. Are you enjoying the hike? Is it something that you've enjoyed as a mother daughter, or is it you enjoying the hike? Is it what you expected it to be when you thought about it all those years ago? Sorry about the all those years.
Oh yeah, it was all those years. It's not what I expected, but
why? What do you expect?
I think I thought that I knew it would be hard, but I didn't know it would be so prolonged hard.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You are finding that, are you?
Yeah.
And is that the ups or the downs or both?
I think for me, it's the downs that I feel like I don't have control sometimes, and I fall.
You mean downs of the mountains?
Yeah,
as
downs
opposed
of the
to,
mountains.
Oh, yeah.
Downs, yeah.
Yeah. And how about you? Is it what you expected, or did you do much? You clearly didn't do any research because you started in Pennsylvania.
She did most of the research. So it's kind of nice for me to feel like I actually know some stuff now, because it was always just her that, like, I was still in school, so I didn't have time really to do research. But yeah, it's definitely harder too than I thought. I knew it would be hard, but yeah, I told her, like, week 2, I was like, I don't think I thought out, like, how long 5 months is. Like, that's a long time.
That is something people have to think about. Isn't
Yeah.
it? Now, we've been out here 4 months now, and you've
Yeah.
been out. You say it's day 30, I think, today for you.
Yep.
Day 30, yeah.
Exactly
And
right.
so, once day 30 gets into a second month, which it will do tomorrow, obviously.
Right, exactly.
And then you get into a third month, you think, my gosh, we're out here a long time. you
Yeah.
know. And it feels like it just becomes your life, doesn't it?
Yeah.
Has it already done that?
Week 2 and 3 were really hard for me, and I would say this week has been better mentally for me.
Have you thought of quitting?
Yes, absolutely.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Did you tell your mum?
Yep.
Luckily, we haven't thought of quitting on the same day.
So you thought about it as well, have you?
Well, just this week actually got hard for me, but she was kind of over the hump.
So have you had the discussion? The discussion being that if one of you decides to quit and the other one doesn't want to, would the other one carry on?
We talked a little about it last night and said we have to at least make it to Katahdin, and then we'll reevaluate. I don't think I'd want to do just half. I think it's kind of a dumb reason, but I feel like I'd feel ashamed to go back home and not say that
you
I
totally
finished doing
You
the whole
totally
thing.
shouldn't feel that way. We were saying on the way up here today that you've done 300 miles.
Yeah.
That's a heck of a long way to
That's
go.
true.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
if you've done 100 miles a week not quite 100 miles. So if you've done 300 miles in your first month, I think that's a really, really good target. So even if you finish now, there's nothing to be ashamed of.
Okay.
It's only a hike. Enjoy it.
true.
Enjoy it, for God's sake. But thanks for talking to us. Appreciate it.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
Cheers. Eventually, the ladies left, and Trick and I were still sitting there for a while, and we just decided eventually to head for the South Mount Wilcox shelter. It was only another 5 miles ahead, and we were convinced we were going to get rained upon, but we didn't. And there was just a dip down, then the inevitable climb. As before, I think I often find these shorter days to be more difficult than some of the longer ones, and I was really grateful to get into camp. We'd only done, I think, what was it? Let's have a look. It was, 11.7 miles, and it felt much longer, probably because we'd just done different things. I don't know. I think the longer targets are seem to be more easily achievable than the shorter targets. I can't really explain to you why. It just seems to be that way. We camped behind the first older shelter, and I said to him, there's another shelter further down, don't you? So we decided to investigate further down, and the second newer shelter. There was a group of 3 young guys. We met before, and we hung out with them as they built a fire. And I was able to watch the Austrian Formula 1 Grand Prix on my phone. A few of us sat around watching on the small screen. It was quite a nice evening, actually. Lovely and warm by the fire. Helps keep the bugs away, which is pretty useful because these bugs are getting worse and worse. It's been quite warm recently. Everybody tells me it's not really humid, but trust me, it feels terribly humid on me. It attracts bugs, and both Trigger and I actually have these head nets which make us look like beekeepers, and kind of weird, really, I guess. And a previous through hiker, Padre, turned up with a beer each. He'd packed them out from the US Route 7, so he'd gone 11 miles with them, and they were still cold. I don't know how he did that, but it was a great evening, just hanging out with guys around a fire. How bad can that be, eh? So that's the end of day number 125. Day number 126, South Mount Wilcox Shelters, mile 1534.5 to US Route 20, mile 1552.1, a 17.6 mile day. Because we'd hiked a shorter day the day before, we'd left ourselves with a nearly 18-mile day, so we were out again before 6:45 a.m. I think now we're getting used to this routine where we both seem to wake up nice and early. I actually wake up often before the 5 o'clock alarm, turn my alarm off and just mooch around a bit. I do love having a coffee in my tent, lying on my airbed. I obviously boil the water outside, and today all I had to eat was a Cliff Bar, which wasn't really enough for me, really. But we haven't really resupplied properly that well recently. Once again, Trigger bolted off, and I decided to enjoy the day on my lonesome once more. The previous day, we decided against going onto the North Mount Wilcott Shelter on the grounds, and it was about 0.3 miles off the trail, way too far. You never want to go more than about 0.2 off the trail, unless it's a spectacular shelter. So anyway, I'm heading, this is why we didn't go there. And I knew it was about 1.8 miles ahead of the South Mount Wilcott shelters. Anyway, with my head down and paying absolutely no attention, I ploughed forward and headed down a trail. By the time I'd gone, about 0.3 of a mile, you can see where this is going, can't you? I spotted a shelter, and madre enough. I knew immediately what I'd done. How I missed this turn, I have no idea. But I'd just ploughed straight down the Blue Blaze Trail to the shelter we didn't want to go to the previous night because it was too far down the trail. So I met Madre and Enough again, and I said to them, I've come the wrong way, haven't I? I said, yeah, this is the North Mount Wilcott Shelter. So I was just, in my frustration, I turned around, headed up the path, but I headed up the wrong path. They went on the path to the privy. This is so embarrassing by now, of course. So I go back to the shelter again, and they see me just staring at me open mouthed and pointing me in the right way. I mean, you think I'd never done this before, wouldn't you, really? What an idiot. Anyway, retracing my steps, I eventually got back on track. And I caught Trigger, quite a long way down actually, at Jerusalem Road, which leads into the small village of Tyringham. I'd already been chatting with a young South African guy called Bradley, who I'd met on the trail, while I was out there by myself, who'd been leading a summer camp group of young boys. Quite a responsibility. He was a 22-year-old young man and looking after these kids. And when we got to the road, Jerusalem Road, Trigger had found a kind of AT shed, which was selling. It was on somebody's land, and it had a fridge and cold sodas available for $1. So we had our share, and Trigger, who eats like a horse, which is pretty good actually, because Trigger was Roy Rogers' horse. There were raw eggs in this fridge, so Trigger bought 4 of them. And he got his knife, cut his Coke can in half, and poured the raw eggs in there and ate 4 raw eggs. Quite why he did that, I just have no idea. I don't know. Anyway, when I'd got there and Bradley and his boys were now gathered at the road waiting for the bus that was supposed to be there, and he started wondering where he was. So I asked him if I could buy all the boys a soda, and he said that I could. And it was really nice. These young lads were reluctant at first, but then as soon as they opened the fridge, they saw all these sodas there. They all took a soda. It was only $10, so it was really nice to be able to do. So Bradley seemed to know, or seemed to be expecting this bus to come. So Trigger and I just headed off and headed across a pasture with some cows, but only to come out onto a road where Bradley's bus was. And it looks like, I think it's called Main Road, which leads into Tyringham, and Jerusalem Road leads into Tyringham as well. So I think Bradley had stopped at the wrong place. So we went down and told the bus driver where Bradley and his boys were. Hopefully the guy then went and picked them up, and I hope it all worked out. We had another substantial climb ahead of us, and it saw us walking along the top of the mountain before we reached the truly awesome Goose Pond. Upper Goose Pond, I think it's called actually. And they've got this fantastic cabin there. It's run by the mountain club, Appalachian Mountain Club. And I remember last time when I did stay there, you can swim in the lake. There's a little jetty there you can go and swim. There's, I think, 3 privies, which is unheard of. There's plenty of space for tents. There's plenty of space in the bunkhouse. And I don't know whether they still do it, but they were served as pancakes last time. And I would love to have stayed there, but we were going to meet base man, so we couldn't have stayed there. And we eventually got to Route 20, and because Baseman said he'd be there at 4:30, we were there about 3:15. So we hitched a lift to our hotel. And then Baseman, or Mike, turned up after we both showered. And he was as good as his word. He'd bought what I asked him to bring, which was a small gas canister, because I was virtually out of gas. And he bought some toilet paper, because I was virtually out of toilet paper, which was very helpful. And he said he'd run us around. So we gathered up our laundry, went to, we're in Lee, by the way, Lee, Massachusetts. Went to the laundry, put that in, went back to a bar recommended by the guy who gave us a lift when we hitched into town. Went to this bar, had some food and beer, obviously. Went back to do the drying in the laundry, and then we went back to get ice cream at another place, and then to Rite Aid and resupplied from Rite Aid, and then back to the hotel. Now, Mike has got something, has had something of an AT journey, and I think he's got a lovely story. It's only a short version of it, but I want you to hear from Mike or Baseman. Okay, we're in an inn in Lee, in Massachusetts, and a buddy of mine who I met in 2014, Mike Coburn, or Baseman, has turned up, as he turns up all the time in my hikes. He wanted to come and help. Hi, Mike, how are you?
Fine, thanks. Good to see you, Mighty Blue.
Well, we met. You tell people, when did we meet?
We met in several times in 2014 on your through hike when I was doing a series of section hikes. I think Rod Hollow Shelter before the roller coaster.
Yeah,
was the first time. But then we bumped into each other in Pennsylvania and Connecticut and then Maine.
That was the amazing thing in Maine, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was completely.
I was coming out of Carratuck, and you were just going the other way on another hike, having gone home and come back again.
But you were a sight to see.
I'm sure. So now, and then roll forward a bit. This year, we were in Daleville on our hike. And what were you completing? Tell us what you've been doing, how you've been doing the AT.
In section hikes, about a week at a time for maybe 30 years.
Right.
And,
is it 30?
30, yep. 1989, I think I checked back. Yeah, it's not 100 miles every year, but the last few years, about 100 miles for a precious week off from work.
Yeah.
Yeah, and managed. We heard just before we were heading down. My wife wanted to drive me down and shuttle me during the day.
Yeah.
Let me slack pack.
Yeah.
But she saw you on Facebook that you were going to be in the neighborhood. So
it's amazing.
Fortuitous that we managed to connect down there.
Yeah. So we went out to dinner that night, and then we saw each other again a few days later at Devil's Backbone. Didn't we?
Yeah. You had
totally coincidental again.
Yes. Patty and I were sitting in a booth after a tough day hike for me, and across the room comes Mighty Blue.
and then I think we another couple of days passed, and we were then slack packing southbound, and we ran into you yet another time.
Yeah, it's uncanny.
It was amazing. Now, the culmination of all this, though, is you're done, except for one short period. What part haven't you done?
I have the paved rescue animal zoo and pond by the Hudson River in Harriman State Park in New York.
And why do you leave that to the end? I know why, but you tell people.
For years I've been thinking this, since I'd already done Katahdin, that wasn't going to work as the ceremonial completion. And I thought, as my parents get older, it would be nice to, at some point, if I get to the point where I'm just about done, to save that last wheelchair accessible stretch for them.
Sure.
So hopefully this fall I'll get a chance to do that. My mom swears she's not going to be sitting in a wheelchair for me. It'll probably take an hour to do 3/4 of a mile. But that's the plan sometime this fall. And my dad passed away last year. Didn't quite make it with him.
Right.
But it's been looking forward to saving that for a special family.
Is it going to be an emotional day, do you think, for you?
I think it will be. I'm sure I'll be thinking about my dad. I probably hiked 600 miles of the trail with him over the years.
Oh, I'm sure.
He was probably my the most common hiking companion over the years.
So where would the finish line actually be?
The finish line, I think I would do that part southbound. So it'll be right by the Bear Mountain Inn. Right in front of the pond down there, but by the Bear Mountain.
And after 30 years, it'll be so what's the next big adventure then?
I think cutting the lawn, paying back my wife for all the time off she's given me over the years. She's not being a hiker herself.
It's been amazing how some people come in and out of your lives. I mean, it's happened again today. Mike contacted me and said, I know you're in the area. Let me come and run you around. And that's exactly what he did. He ran me around last time. Remember what you did? You ran me around, and I need. I needed a pot, didn't I?
Yeah, I think you had a mishap boiling a bunch of rice onto your jet boil, so you needed a new pan. And was it Kent, Connecticut? Didn't have the greatest supply of hiking supplies, so you ended up, I think, having to buy a 5-pound skillet from a hardware store.
I had I think it was a Teflon coated thing which clanked on the back of my pack for about 3 weeks before I gave it up eventually. Yeah, you run into people over the years, and we have this thing in common, which is the AT, and it's something that runs through our life. It's run through your life, obviously, for 30 years, and me now for 5 years. And the fact that we've turned up in each other's lives during that time has been a real pleasure for me, and I've really enjoyed speaking again yet tonight.
Likewise. It's been good to see you, Mighty Blue.
Okay, buddy. Well, thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Cheers. What a great guy Mike is. I've met him many times now, and he's one of those people who pops into your life infrequently, but with whom you have an immediate bond. And he and I are linked by the AT, and it's a lovely connection to have. I've got that connection with a number of different people, and Mike is certainly one of those special ones as well. So, another bit of helpful trail magic, and we've even pushed past 1,550 miles now. It seems to be getting real and certainly tougher from my perspective, but those miles keep lining up in front of us, and we keep doing them. Let's hope it continues. I'll see you next time.